So joined now by Kristen Soltis. She's the communications advisor to Crossroads Generation, a new GOP-backed super PAC. And Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Bill Clinton, also a Fox News contributor. Welcome to you both. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Doug,
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Doug, what do you make, first of all, of that back and forth between President Obama and Charles Krauthammer?
Well, I think that President Obama has put on the table a first step to reduce spending, reform entitlements, and raise revenue through tax increases, which is what we've got to do to balance the budget. And the Republicans have answered, as we heard in the soundbite before, with massive tax cuts. And I basically think that the Republicans have been irresponsible. I think Charles Krauthammer overstates the case vastly.
You know, there's a lot of discussion out there, obviously, about the debt, about the deficit, and the polls show us that people do care about bringing it down, that they do want to see spending cut, as well as some of these other ideas that are out there, Kristen. So, you know, is the president being genuine in what he's saying about his own record in his administration?
No, not at all, unfortunately. If you look at 2009, which is the year that they sort of talk about as this horrible year, it was an anomaly. We had to have the stimulus. We had to have the bailouts. And Democrats want to blame this on Republicans. But then that doesn't answer the question of why 2010 and 2011 all looked just as bad. So, yeah, the rate of growth of this didn't really change that much because they kept doing a terrible year over and over again. And I think that's what voters are hoping to see, a change in direction for when they're going to vote this November.
It's pretty tough for people to get an apples and apples comparison on it, because as they went on about this last night in a special report, it's where your benchmark is, it's what you're considering and not considering when you look at these things across the years, stimulus packages and all of that, and bailout packages, whether or not they should be in the mix in these kind of administration to administration calculations. All that being said, some interesting polls this morning from the Washington Post that I want to take a look at. This first one that we're going to pull up is quite interesting. The question was, who would do more to advance the economic interest of you and your family? And you take a look at that number. Mitt Romney's at 55%, and President Obama's at 32%. This was among white voters describing themselves as struggling to remain in a certain class. That's a rough number for the president, Doug.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's one of the reasons why I think the president has to and will talk about real deficit reduction and make it clear that President Obama has taken a first step, and that Governor Romney, with his massive tax cuts and the Ryan plan, which would eviscerate entitlements, will actually make it tougher for middle-class families, not easier.
But I wonder, and I want to put up the next poll, which shows an overall number. You saw what the breakout was in the prior one. This one is neck and neck. Who would do more to advance the economic interests of you and your family? So the question is about these, you know, middle class or struggling to stay in the middle class white voters who may very well sort of be folks who are on that bubble where they say, do I want to keep the president I have, or do I want to give someone else a try, based on your own economic experience? Troubling or not troubling for the president, Kristen, in that number?
Oh, I think it's very troubling. I think for folks who are looking at the last 3 years and wondering, is this the new normal? They want something new. They want a fresh start. And I think, you know, these issues of debt and deficits, you know, I don't think the president has a lot of credibility on this. Gallup did a poll earlier this month on a variety of economic issues. Who do you trust more to handle unemployment, cost of health care, debt and deficits? And debt and deficits was the issue on which Romney had the biggest advantage over Obama, a 15-point advantage. I think that's why you're seeing Obama try to make the case that he's a fiscal conservative, but I just don't think it's believable.
You know, Doug, when you break that down, you're a pollster, obviously, so when you look at that, it looks like Mitt Romney does very well among white voters, middle class and above. It looks like he's having a very tough time with ethnic voters, with Latino voters, African-American voters. That's where his work's cut out for him.
Well, yeah, it absolutely is, Martha. I mean, he's trailing on who can do more for you and your family. He's trailing on being in touch. And while there certainly are concerns about the debt and the deficit, this is by no means a slam dunk that economic issues are going to work for Governor Romney. And I think his fiscal policies have really not been fleshed out, other than massive cuts in entitlements and massive tax cuts for the rich. And I think people are genuinely confused. And the election will be about who do people think can really get a handle on our economic problems, create jobs, and ultimately create economic growth. And right now it's a jump ball.
5 months out, and we got to leave it there. 5 months out, and everybody's looking for someone to provide a vision for the next 4 years.
That's absolutely
and I think a lot
right.
of people think that's something that's very missing in some ways from this. Kirsten, thank you so
Couldn't
much.
agree
Great
more,
to have you
Martha.
here.
Based on
Doug, good to have you here as
Based
well.
on everything we've seen, Sean's right.